I'm the most famous and talked about virgin in the world. And you're kind of left wondering, what do people actually want? Who do they want me to be today? Some faces become so familiar that they feel like they've always been part of popular culture. Brooke Shields started working before she could even walk, became famous before reaching puberty, and spent her teenage years at the center of controversies that could have broken almost anyone. Then she seemed to disappear from the spotlight, only to return years later on her own terms. Today we're taking a look at what really happened to Brooke Shields. The beginning. Brooke Krista Shields was born on May 31, 1965, in New York City. Her mother, Terry Shields, had been an actress and model, while her father, Frank Shields, was a businessman from an aristocratic family. Her parents divorced when Brooke was just 5 months old. Even so, she maintained a close relationship with her father until his death in 2003, while Terry Shields was determined to turn her daughter into a star. At just 11 months old, Brooke landed her first job, an advertisement for Ivory soap. By the time she was a toddler, she was already working regularly as a child model. The Ford models signed her, and Eileen Ford later said she even created the agency's children's division specifically for Brooke Shields. From the very beginning, Brooke Shields was carefully groomed for fame, with her career entirely managed by her mother. Pretty Baby, and the controversy begins. In 1978, at just 11 years old, Brooke Shields was cast in French director Louis Malle's film Pretty Baby. She played Violet, a child living in a New Orleans brothel in 1917, the daughter of a worker portrayed by Susan Sarandon. The film included multiple highly controversial scenes involving the young actress, content that would not be allowed today. Pretty Baby won an award at the 1978 Cannes Film Festival and was nominated for the Palme d'Or, but it also sparked outrage among critics and was banned in parts of Canada and Australia. Supporters of the film argued it was art, a historical drama exploring a dark chapter of American life. However, the imagery of an 11-year-old in such situations caused a backlash that has never fully faded. Years later, as an adult, Shields would describe Pretty Baby as truly the only artistic film she had ever been part of. She defended Louis Malle's intentions and emphasized the serious, artistic nature of the project. At the same time, Brooke Shields later acknowledged how complicated the situation really was, recognizing that as a child, she couldn't truly give informed consent to something she didn't fully understand, no matter how much her mother reassured her it was acceptable. The controversy extended far beyond the film itself. In 1975, when Shields was only 10 years old, photographer Gary Gross took a series of inappropriate photos of her for a publication. Her mother, Terry Shields, sold the rights to those images for $450. At the time, despite public discomfort, it was technically legal. When Shields turned 18, she filed a lawsuit to stop further use of the photos, but the case eventually reached the New York Court of Appeals, which ruled 4-3 in favor of the photographer. As a result, Gary Gross retained the rights to the images, and Shields lost control over photos from her own childhood. The Blue Lagoon. In 1980, at just 14 years old, Brooke Shields starred in The Blue Lagoon alongside Christopher Atkins, who was 18 at the time. The film tells the story of two cousins stranded on a tropical island in the South Pacific during the Victorian era. Stranded without any adult supervision, the two characters go through puberty, fall in love, and eventually have a child together. The film required Brooke Shields to appear in several scenes that were considered inappropriate, although she later testified before the United States Congress that body doubles were used for certain shots. In other scenes, her hair was carefully positioned to conceal her, and an adult double was used when necessary. Even so, the film was still presenting a 14-year-old girl in a sexualized way, and those involved were aware of it. Years later, in a 2023 documentary about her life, Shields said the filmmakers were essentially trying to turn it into something like a reality experience, stating, "They wanted to sell my actual awakening." Her co-star Christopher Atkins agreed that the film would never be made today. He described unsafe working conditions on set, including frequent injuries and even harm to animals during certain scenes. Shields also revealed on her podcast that she developed pneumonia during filming. In the childbirth scene where her character gives birth, she was actually struggling through a severe coughing fit because she could barely breathe. The crew believed it was a brilliant acting choice, but in reality, Brooke Shields was genuinely ill and struggling. The director of The Blue Lagoon, Randall Kleiser, even called Shields after her 2023 documentary was released. When she saw his name appear on her phone, she chose not to answer and let it go to voicemail, wanting to hear the tone of his message first. In the end, she never returned the call. "I believe in myself, and I know that whatever I truly believe in can't be all that wrong if I trust it completely." Calvin Klein and a cultural phenomenon. Also in 1980, Shields became the youngest fashion model ever to appear on the cover of Vogue at just 14 years old. That same year, she starred in a series of controversial television and print ads for Calvin Klein jeans. One TV commercial featured her delivering the now iconic line, "You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." The suggestive tone of the ad immediately sparked debate. Many questioned whether it was appropriate for a 15-year-old girl to say something so provocative. CBS and several other networks refused to air the commercial. However, the backlash only fueled its impact. The controversy made the campaign even more successful, boosting Shields' fame and turning Calvin Klein jeans into a true cultural phenomenon. Shields followed The Blue Lagoon with Endless Love in 1981, another film directed by Franco Zeffirelli that focused on teenage relationships. By this point, a clear pattern had emerged. Brooke Shields was being marketed as far more mature than her actual age, and the industry was profiting heavily from that image. She went on to win the People's Choice Awards for Favorite Young Motion Picture Performer for 4 consecutive years, from 1981 through 1984. The mother who controlled everything. Terry Shields oversaw every aspect of her daughter's life and career, choosing her roles, photographers, and even the interviews she would give. Brooke later spoke about feeling an intense responsibility to keep her mother, who struggled with alcohol dependency, alive. For her, the work was never just about fame or money, it was about giving her mother a reason to keep going. In a 1977 cover story for New York Magazine, Terry and Brooke appeared together. When journalist Barbara Walters questioned whether Terry was exploiting her daughter, her response came across as defensive and unconvincing. Looking back at interviews from that time, male reporters often asked the young Shields suggestive and inappropriate questions, while her mother sat beside her, smiling. The adults around her failed to protect her, and in some cases, even pushed her into situations that left lasting emotional scars. Princeton and escape. In 1983, Brooke Shields made a decision that shocked Hollywood. She paused her modeling career to attend Princeton University. At 18, she was determined to regain control over her own life after years of being managed by her mother. For the first time, she had the chance to experience freedom, pursue an education, and define herself beyond a carefully constructed public image. She enrolled in the fall of 1983 and graduated in June 1987 with a Bachelor of Arts in Romance Languages, focusing on French literature with a minor in Italian. During her time there, she joined the Princeton Triangle Club and the Cap and Gown Club. According to her own account, she often spent her free time making pottery as a way to relax. Her senior thesis, completed in 1987, examined the films of Louis Malle. Shortly after she graduated, Life magazine published her full 4-year academic transcript. Soon after, the New York Times ran an article questioning whether Princeton had truly provided her with a well-rounded liberal arts education. The article reflected the intense media scrutiny Brooke Shields continued to face, even while trying to live as a normal college student. During her time at Princeton University, she dated actor Dean Cain. Although she attempted to build a more ordinary life, she could never fully escape the identity shaped by her early fame. The return to Hollywood. After graduating, Shields went back to acting, taking on smaller roles throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s. She starred in Brenda Starr, although it had actually been filmed in 1986 and delayed for years due to legal complications. She also had a minor role in The Muppets Take Manhattan and appeared in the disaster film Sahara, which received largely negative reviews. Her true comeback came in 1996, when NBC cast her as the lead in the sitcom Suddenly Susan. She played Susan Keene, a magazine writer navigating her career and relationships in San Francisco. The series ran successfully for 4 seasons, from 1996 to 2000. For her performance, Shields received 2 Golden Globe Awards nominations and won a People's Choice Awards in 1997 for Favorite Female Performer in a New Television Series. During this period, she also made a memorable guest appearance on Friends. Her episode became the highest rated at the time, drawing 52.9 million viewers. Executives at NBC were so impressed that they later offered her the lead role in Suddenly Susan, partly because of that success. As Shields once put it, work has to remain enjoyable, because if it becomes too difficult or forced, it ultimately won't be good. Andre Agassi and a Brief Marriage. In 1993, Brooke Shields began a relationship with tennis star Andre Agassi, and the two married in 1997. Shields later reflected that Agassi could be just as controlling as her mother, although she didn't fully recognize it at the time. He reportedly struggled with intense jealousy over her success on Suddenly Susan and her appearance on Friends. At one point, he became so enraged that he destroyed his own trophies from Wimbledon and other competitions because of frustrations tied to her career. The marriage lasted only 2 years, ending in divorce in 1999. Shields later described the relationship as a pattern, being drawn to someone who mirrored the same controlling dynamic she had experienced throughout her life with her mother. In 1999, Brooke Shields met television writer Chris Henchy through mutual friends, and they married in 2001. Unlike her previous relationships, this one was grounded in mutual respect and support. The couple wanted to start a family, but Shields faced infertility challenges and went through multiple rounds of in vitro fertilization. After years of effort, she gave birth to their daughter Rowan Frances Henchy on May 15, 2003. However, instead of the happiness she expected, Shields was quickly overwhelmed by severe depression. She experienced intense postpartum depression, including dark thoughts and difficulty responding to her baby's needs. A doctor eventually diagnosed her condition and prescribed treatment, which helped her begin to recover. In 2005, Shields shared her experience in her book Down Came the Rain: My Journey Through Postpartum Depression. She also appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show to speak openly about her struggle, helping raise awareness about a condition many women had long endured in silence. The Tom Cruise controversy. When Brooke Shields began speaking publicly about postpartum depression and the treatment that helped save her life, she became the target of unexpected criticism. In May 2005, Cruise, an outspoken member of Scientology, appeared on Today Show with Matt Lauer and openly criticized Shields for using psychiatric medication. Cruise questioned her career and claimed that depression could be treated with exercise and vitamins, calling her advocacy of medical treatment irresponsible and dangerous. Shields responded with an op-ed titled War of Words, published in the New York Times on July 1, 2005. In it, she defended her decisions and suggested Cruise should stick to fighting aliens, a pointed reference to War of the Worlds and his beliefs. Public opinion largely supported Shields. In 2006, Cruise visited her home and personally apologized for his remarks, which she accepted. However, the controversy had already affected his public image, while Shields emerged as a strong advocate for women's health and mental health awareness. That same year, she welcomed her second daughter, Greer Hammond Henchy, born on April 18, 2006. At this time, Brooke Shields was prepared, working closely with her doctors to manage any returning symptoms. In her later career, She continued to work steadily in television throughout the 2000s and 2010s. She starred in the NBC series Lipstick Jungle from 2008 to 2009, playing Wendy Healy, and in 2017, she had a major recurring role on Law and Order: Special Victims Unit during its 19th season. She also did voice work for animated shows and appeared in numerous films and television series, often portraying polished, professional women. Beyond acting, Shields continued writing. In 2015, she published There Was a Little Girl, a deeply personal memoir about her complicated relationship with her mother, Terry Shields, who passed away in 2012. The book explored both the love and the exploitation she experienced growing up, and how she came to terms with that dual reality. Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields. In 2023, the two-part documentary Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields premiered at the Sundance Film Festival before being released on Hulu in April. Directed by Lana Wilson, who previously directed Miss Americana about Taylor Swift, the film takes a close look at Shields' rise to fame as a child star and the exploitation she endured along the way. The documentary features deeply uncomfortable clips from old talk shows, where adult men behaved inappropriately toward a very young Brooke Shields. It explores how American culture treated women and girls at the time, using Shields as one of the most visible and striking examples. For the first time, it also gave her the space to speak openly about experiences she had never fully processed before. In the film Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields, she revealed that she had been seriously harmed by an unnamed but powerful Hollywood executive. After a business dinner, he took advantage of her in his hotel room. Shields described feeling frozen, unable to fully understand or react to what was happening. It marked a significant moment of speaking out, after keeping the experience private for decades. The documentary became the most watched debut for ABC News on Hulu, sparking widespread conversations about child exploitation, the predatory nature of Hollywood, and how much or how little has changed over time. Shields' daughters, Rowan and Greer, who appear in the film, shared that they have never seen Pretty Baby or The Blue Lagoon and do not plan to. After watching the documentary, her daughter Rowan told her, "Women need to see this. There's an authenticity. There's a hustle because it's every day." Where she is now. In 2024, Brooke Shields was elected president of the Actors Equity Association, the union representing actors and stage managers in live theater. It marked a major leadership role, placing her at the center of labor negotiations and advocacy for workers' rights in the entertainment industry. In October 2025, she spoke out in support of fair treatment for performers at a Colorado restaurant owned by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park. That same year, she starred in the Netflix film Mother of the Bride alongside Miranda Cosgrove. She has continued working consistently, choosing roles that genuinely interest her rather than simply accepting what is offered. Shields also launched Beginning Is Now, a wellness and lifestyle brand focused on women's health and aging. She has become an outspoken advocate for embracing middle age, addressing issues like ageism in Hollywood and the pressure on women to remain perpetually youthful. Today, she lives in Greenwich Village with her husband, Chris Henchy, and their 2 daughters. Over the course of her career, she has appeared in more than 100 films and television shows, written multiple books, and performed on Broadway in several productions. She has built a life and legacy that extends far beyond the controversial images that defined her early fame. The Reckoning. Looking back at Brooke Shields' career means confronting difficult truths about American culture. A child was exploited in ways that would be considered illegal today. At the time, it was defended as art, as business, as simply the way the industry worked. Terry Shields carried much of the responsibility. She was both Brooke Shields' mother and manager, and she made choices that often placed fame and profit above her daughter's well-being. But she was not the only one involved. Directors, producers, photographers, advertisers, magazine editors, and television executives all played a role in shaping and sustaining that system. They understood what they were doing, benefited from it, and largely avoided consequences. Over time, Brooke Shields herself has had to confront and reevaluate her own past. For years, she defended Pretty Baby and director Louis Malle, maintaining that the project was meaningful and artistic. But as she grew older, and especially after becoming a mother, her perspective began to change. She came to recognize what she couldn't fully grasp as a child, that a child cannot give true consent to situations they don't understand, no matter how mature they may appear or how strongly adults insist it is acceptable. Of the 2023 documentary Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields gave Brooke Shields the chance to finally tell her own story, rather than having it shaped by others. She spoke about how she compartmentalized different parts of her life as a way to survive. She described herself as a workhorse, someone who simply did the job, got paid, and moved on. For her, it became transactional, a way to cope with circumstances she couldn't fully control. She protected herself psychologically by disconnecting from what was happening around her. The legacy. Brooke Shields never asked for any of this. She was placed in front of cameras before she could even walk, guided and controlled by Terry Shields, who saw her daughter as a path to the life she herself had never achieved. At the same time, an entire industry took part in exploiting a child because it was profitable. Yet despite all of it, Shields endured. She pursued an education, built a career on her own terms, got married, had children, wrote books, and became an advocate for women's health. Over time, she reclaimed her narrative, transforming from a symbol of childhood exploitation into a powerful voice for survivors, for mothers facing postpartum depression, and for women navigating aging in an industry that often values youth above everything else. Her story has become a cautionary tale about what happens when adults fail to protect children. It has sparked ongoing conversations about child actors, consent, and the line between art and exploitation. It also reminded an entire generation that grew up seeing Brooke Shields everywhere that those images came at a significant personal cost to the person behind them. From child model to controversial teenage star, from a graduate of Princeton University to a successful television actress, from an advocate for postpartum depression to president of the Actors Equity Association, Brooke Shields has lived multiple lives in the public eye. The woman who began working at just 11 months old is now 59, and finally telling her story on her own terms. The journey from Pretty Baby to Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields represents a lifetime of surviving, reflecting, and ultimately reclaiming a narrative that was never meant for her to control. If you found Brooke Shields' story compelling, consider exploring more stories about Hollywood's most fascinating figures. What do you think about how child actors should be protected today? Let us know in the comments below.